What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Power Rankings. We are headed into week 2. We have officially gotten through the first week of the 2024 NFL season. It was kind of a weird week. There wasn't a ton of scoring, not a ton of touchdowns. It was maybe the best week for kickers in NFL history. We're going to break it all down. We're going to go into the top 10 teams heading into week 2. And before we get started, one last thing. Don't forget to subscribe to Bet the House. Drop a like. We really appreciate it. It helps out the channel a ton. We're just getting this thing started, but we have a ton of content planned for the near future, and we hope you're going to ride with us the whole NFL season. All right, let's jump right into it. We are going to start off at number 10 with the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Dolphins are coming off a 17-20 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars. It wasn't that impressive, but somebody had to fall off the list. That was the Bengals. That was the Packers. The Dolphins are going to jump up and take their spot. Tyreek detained, I almost said arrested, detained before the game in what was kind of a crazy situation. Social media was going crazy, but he pulled up, had a huge day, 80-yard touchdown from Tua. Devon Achane looked fresh. He looked healthy. Jalen Waddle looked good. He was injured in the second quarter, as he always is, but just as usual, he came back and finished the game. The skill position players for the Dolphins looked really good, just as we expected. The biggest question was Tua. In the first half, he looked horrible. He was missing Tyreek on wide open throws all over the field. It really wasn't good. And then in the second half, they had a couple of nice drives to finish it up. And that's really what got them over the hump. I think the Jaguars kind of let them back into this one. Trevor Lawrence, after the first half, really didn't do much of anything. Both are controversial quarterbacks who got paid in the offseason, looking to make a big splash in week 1 to kind of see if this team can, take a big leap. I'd say the Dolphins barely came out ahead on that. They're only number 10 by virtue of the fact that they won the game. If Jacksonville had won, I don't know if I would have them in the top 10, but there's really just a case of not a lot of teams belong here. So that's kind of what that situation was. We're going to move on to number 9. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, this is a team that was very impressive in week 1 in their win over the Commanders. They were not on the power rankings heading into the season, and that might be a situation where I may have disrespected these Buccaneers, because damn did Baker Mayfield look good. Mike Evans was absolutely mossing people. Rachaad White was running all over the place. They had Bucky Irving come in at the end. He was running all over the place. The defense left a little bit to be desired. At times, Jaden Daniels did have some opportunities to run, but that's just kind of what he's going to be able to do this season, I think, against most teams. So I can't really fault them for that. This is a team that has guys all over the field, just true NFL gritty type of guys. And it might not be a ton of like flash and star power aside from, a few Mike Evans catches that you'll see from week to week. But I think this team is actually going to be able to win a lot of games and beat good teams that people don't think they're going to beat. So this is a team that maybe could even move up higher on the list. I think I kind of disrespected them heading into week 1. But we will jump in to number 8. This is a team, the first team that was on the week 1 list, the Buffalo Bills. They got an impressive win over the Arizona Cardinals. The defense was definitely shaky, but I personally think that was more of a case of Kyler Murray being really, really good in the first half. And on top of that, they gave up the first dynamic kickoff touchdown in NFL history. I think I said that right. DJ Dallas scored a huge touchdown that kind of kept the Cardinals in the game late, but this game was really just Josh Allen. He had 2 passing touchdowns. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. He was all over the field. It was pretty apparent the absence of Stephon Diggs and Gabe Davis, and a couple of the all-22 clips, you could see the Cardinals defense was literally just triple teaming Dalton Kincaid. There's going to have to be somebody to step up for this team in the receiver room to make me feel confident about them coming down the stretch. But as long as they have Josh Allen playing the way he's playing and he's not turning the ball over, they're going to be really damn hard to beat. I mean, he could just put up 30 plus on any team, any given week. I know the Cardinals defense isn't great, but it was still a damn impressive performance. I'm not so sure how this team is going to look going forward, but I think in the meantime, with Josh Allen playing the way he's playing, I can't have them any lower than 8. I don't think they have a great opportunity to jump up, but we'll see how they do in the next couple weeks. All right, moving on to number 7. This is going to be the Baltimore Ravens. So the Ravens are coming off a loss in the opening night game against the Kansas City Chiefs. I had them ranked 4th coming into week 1. This is my pick to win the Super Bowl. I'm very high on them still. I think Lamar had a bit of an off night. I think he looked a little rusty, kind of the way he looked in the AFC Championship last year. I don't want to say it's a case of Lamar gets rattled in the big games. I really think it's more just a case that they haven't found a way to play their game against the Chiefs and really dictate the pace of the game the way they do a lot of other teams. And I think they are capable of doing that, especially with John Harbaugh coaching this team, and especially with that defense led by Roquan Smith, who really didn't have a great game. Isaiah Likely was huge in this game, kind of an emergence for him. So if Mark Andrews can become a factor, if he can stay healthy, and him and Isaiah Likely can be a tight end duo throughout the season, this team actually could have some legitimate weapons. I mean, realistically, they were a centimeter away from winning this game, with Isaiah Likely getting that toe down, or almost getting that toe down on the back line of the end zone to finish the game. So we'll see how this team fares moving forward. I'm fairly confident they'll turn it around real quick. It's the Kansas City Chiefs, opening night in Arrowhead Stadium. They're going to drop down the list because of the loss, but I think they're going to move right back up. I expect this team to bounce back in week 2. Number 6 is the Philadelphia Eagles. This is where they were last week. They didn't move. They got the win over the Green Bay Packers in the NFL's first Brazil game. It was like an ice rink. Players were slipping all over the field. Ironically, the Packers and the Eagles are both of the teams in the NFL that use that hybrid surface that they used in Brazil. So technically they should have some experience on it, but it was still a bit of a weird thing to see, like Jalen Hurts and Jordan Love just slipping everywhere. And so Saquon had a huge game, 3 touchdowns. Giants fans couldn't be more depressed, especially the way Daniel Jones played. Maybe one of the worst performances of the week. This Eagles team, this is kind of exactly what I expected out of them. That's why they didn't really move up or down. The defense looked solid. Jalen Hurts was a little shaky. He missed some throws. He made some nice throws. Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Saquon Barkley, a great offensive line even without Jason Kelce. Cam Jurgens looked really good as a replacement once he got settled in. I think if this pass rush can improve, that's kind of going to be the thing that can maybe take them over the top to compete with the Niners, the Lions, and obviously the play of Jalen Hurts if it continues to get better. He didn't really look like he wanted to run a lot, but that could have just been something to do with the surface. We'll see how they do heading into week 2. I'm not super sure how I feel about them going into a matchup with the Atlanta Falcons. I feel like the Falcons are going to be hungry to bounce back. I think it'll be a close game, and I think they might get stung a little bit if Jalen Hurts and that defense doesn't wake up. But we'll see. Going into number 5, the Dallas Cowboys. Maybe the most impressive win of the week, or maybe the least impressive loss of the week from the Cleveland Browns. Although I can't really say that because the Carolina Panthers exist. But the Dallas Cowboys absolutely throttled the Cleveland Browns, went into Cleveland. Tom Brady's first game in the booth. Dak was solid. He didn't do anything spectacular, but he made some nice throws to CeeDee Lamb. Zeke looked a lot fresher than I expected. They still have that kind of duo going on between him and Rico Dowdle, but I feel like the Cowboys' offensive line was just really manhandling that Browns D-line, which is not something you expect to see. Myles Garrett really didn't feel like he was that much of a factor. The Browns' offense, I mean, Deshaun Watson, oh, God. I feel like I can't evaluate the Cowboys' defense based on that performance because, man, is Deshaun bad. And it's tough for the Browns because I feel like Stefanski is a good coach. They've got some good pieces there with Amari Cooper, Jerry Jeudy. Jerome Ford is an underrated running back. But, man, Deshaun just looks really bad. He's overthrowing guys all over the place. He just looks lost out there, and maybe that's the worst contract in history. But that's enough about the Browns. The Cowboys, like I said, going to be tough to evaluate their defense off of that performance, but we'll see how they do going forward into week 2. I'm pretty confident in this team. I think Dak looked good. He really wasn't asked to do a whole lot, so I think anybody criticizing Dak for not being spectacular, he really didn't need to be. I think the Cowboys are going to kind of continue to do what they've done in the regular season the past couple of years and just keep rolling, and we'll kind of see how it looks come December and January. All right, number 4, the Detroit Lions. They're coming off a Sunday night win over the LA Rams in overtime, and man, that last drive was impressive. I mean, the biggest takeaway I had from this game was, boy, that Lions offensive line, those guys are some dudes. They are just absolutely manhandling people up front, and I know the Rams defensive line is young, but David Montgomery in that overtime drive behind that offensive line, like, they were just trucking people. Jared Goff, like, it could have been me handing the ball off. That team was going to go right down the field and score. And, it was late in the game. That Rams defense was tired. They'd been out there a lot. And I really was impressed with the Rams. I think Stafford is a really phenomenal quarterback. Once McVay gets that thing going, and they have a lot of injuries, once they get healthy, I think they're going to be a real contender down the stretch. I think they're underrated, and they're a team that could end up on this list sooner rather than later. So I think this was an impressive win for the Lions. Their defense looked pretty good for most of the game. Matt Stafford had a couple nice drives, but that's going to happen against him. So I think holding the Rams to 20 points is fairly impressive. The Lions' run stopping, really good. Kyren Williams had nothing going all night. So this is a team that looked even better than I thought they would, and I think they should be contending for the NFC Championship once again. That offensive line, man, wow. All right, number 3 is the Kansas City Chiefs. This is a team that does not move. Oh, they actually did drop one spot. They were number 2 last week, and they dropped in a win over the Ravens. I'm not a Chiefs hater. I think Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league. There's nothing you can say to question that. It's just, once again, they didn't look like the Chiefs that I expect them to look like, with, offense dominating, guys flying all over the field, Kelsey finding the soft spot in the defense repeatedly. I think last year what got them to the Super Bowl was really riding their defense. They beat the Ravens, scoring 17 points in the AFC Championship game last year. That kind of thing just isn't what you expect from Patrick Mahomes. It's almost a little, it's scary to say, it's almost a little Brady-esque in the way that, he just doesn't turn the ball. He plays the game the way it needs to be played. If he has to score 50 points to win, he will. If they need to score 17 points and make it a defensive game where you don't turn the ball over, he can do that too. So obviously this team is a real threat to win their 3rd Super Bowl in a row and become the first team to ever do that. I just thought that the top 2 teams on this list were a bit more impressive than the Chiefs were against the Ravens. And number 2, the Houston Texans. Now, this is a team that was number 1 heading into the season. I dropped them down one spot. Their defense against the Colts is the only thing that kind of concerned me. So, for the most part, they played solid all day, but there were a couple absolute bombs where their secondary just got absolutely mossed by Alec Pierce, of all people. And no disrespect to him, not saying he's a bad receiver, but when Anthony Richardson is throwing up those huge, like, sky balls, it's almost like a Hail Mary. I know there's only, 1 or 2 guys on it in some of those situations, but you got to be able to just knock those passes down. And that was really the difference in why this was a close game. Is 2 touchdowns resulted from, giant bomb throws from Anthony Richardson to Alec Pierce. Otherwise, we're looking at, a 29-13 game where the Texans win an absolute rout. Joe Mixon looked dominant. Like, he looked like he's the best running back in the league. I don't know how he keeps doing it. This guy's been taking a beating for years. He's always healthy. He just is an absolute definition of a bell cow back. He just keeps running the rock over and over and over again. It was a really impressive win from the Houston Texans. Like I said, the defense, I think they need to clean up a little bit. I'm pretty confident in DeMeco Ryans as a head coach. I think he'll get the job done there. But this offense, man, with Nico Collins, Diggs, Tank Dell, Joe Mixon, Dalton Schultz, it's CJ Stroud at quarterback. It's just like murderer's row of guys on that offense. They're going to put up 30 points a week on absolutely everybody. So I don't see this team struggling anytime soon. And number 1 is the San Francisco 49ers. that was about as impressive of a win as I can remember in any week 1 game. They absolutely manhandled the Jets, who are, we've gone this whole past 2 years talking about this Jets defense, this front seven for the Jets with Sauce Gardner behind it. They didn't stop anything. The 49ers absolutely ran right over them. And this is the offensive line is supposed to be the weakness for this team. And they absolutely dominated. Jordan, we get word 90 minutes before kickoff that Christian McCaffrey is out for the game. Weird situation there. We'll see what the investigation ends up yielding about when the Niners knew McCaffrey was going to start or wasn't going to start. Thank God I drafted Jordan Mason on my fantasy team behind him, because, man, that would have sucked. But Mason looked great. He was trucking people, like violent runs behind that offensive line. I don't think anybody was expecting that dominant of a win. Purdy looked about what we expect him to, just making the throws that he has to make. A lot of it is just Shanahan scheming guys wide open. Jawan Jennings, couple of really nice routes where he's just wide open down the field. Debo in the run game. Ayuk had a couple drops. I think he's a little rusty. Obviously didn't play much in training camp or the preseason because of the contract situation. But, man, this team looked really damn good, and I think they're going to only get better moving forward. Shanahan, probably is probably the best scheme coach in the league at this moment, I think. And I don't see any way this team doesn't win 13, 14 games and end up with the 1 seed in the NFC, barring any injuries. I mean, gosh, they were really, really good. All right, y'all, that was week number 2 of the NFL Power Rankings. Appreciate you joining us. Before you go, don't forget to subscribe, ring the bell, hit the like button, and as always, best of luck on Sunday when you bet the house.